Hi, I'm VGRetro. Do I need to say anything else?
Ah yes, The Adventures of Tintin. What can I say about this, except that it's one of the most famous European comic books of the 20th century. Almost everybody has read at least one Tintin book, and even if they haven't, most people will at least know who the character is. To give you a basic rundown, Tintin is a boy journalist who travels the world with his dog Snowy, and is sometimes accompanied by his friends Captain Haddock, Professor Calculus, and two police detectives called Thompson and Thompson. During the course of his adventures, he ends up discovering plots by evil criminals such as Dr. Muller, Mutsuhirato, Roberto Rastapopoulos, and even Chicago's most devious gangster, Al Capone. Over the years, Tintin has become an icon, his stories gaining a high popularity not just in his homeland of Belgium, but all over the world.
He is to Belgian comics what Mickey Mouse is to cartoon films. Now, with a Tintin movie on its way, I think it's only fair that we talk about Tintin's video game. Now, the Tintin games have become exceedingly rare over the years, so I'm glad to own this one, Tintin in Tibet. Now, I'm going to give you a quick rundown on the storyline, just so that you don't get too confused.
Our story begins in the Blue Lotus. Tintin is in China, on board a train bound for Hukao. The train comes to a halt because of a flood, and Tintin is forced to continue his journey on foot. When he reaches the end of the line, he comes across a boy drowning in the rushing water. Fortunately, he is able to save him. The boy's name is Chang, and he and Tintin become the best of friends. Now, in Tintin in Tibet, Tintin has a nightmare during the night that his friend Chang has been lost in a plane crash. And the following morning, he hears that a plane crashed in the mountains of Tibet with his friend Chang aboard. Desperate to find his friend, dead or alive, Tintin ventures into the deadly mountains along with his friend Captain Haddock and his dog Snowy.
Tintin in Tibet is the most popular of the Tintin books, and you'd think that this game would be as popular as the book it represents, wouldn't you? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. But it's bad. It's really bad. Now, let's just get on with it.
When you start the game, you have this long scrolling title sequence. It looks promising enough. Now, when the game actually begins, you'll find that the graphics are pretty good, and the character animations are very faithful to the Tintin books.
Now, before we go anywhere, I'm just going to check out the controls.
You use the C button to jump, the B button to run, and... What? Okay. You run into the foreground by pressing down? What good is that? Well, as you go on through the level, children start to run at you. To avoid them, you have to run into the foreground. That's kind of silly, isn't it? The most famous Belgian comic book character's first obstacle in a video game is little kids? I mean, come on! But as you play on, there's a guy in a train who drops parcels, and you have to jump over them. It's by now that you start to think that something might be wrong with this game. I mean, this level follows this one daft pattern. Dodge kids, avoid parcels. Dodge kids, avoid parcels. That's not the kind of gameplay I was expecting. Later you come across this man standing in the foreground who tells you that the railway line ahead has been cut off. You then have to carry these two parcels across the train, dodging the steam as you go. Then you have to place the parcels on the railway line so that you can reach the other side. When you get there, Chang is in the river and you have to dive in to save him. Now I've just noticed that this level is actually in 3 different parts. Part 1, dodging kids and parcels. Part 2, crossing the railway line. And Part 3, saving Chang in the flooded river. Now let me remind you that whenever you play a game, Level 1 is the most important section of any game, because it's designed to make you want to continue playing. Is it just me? Or is this level designed to make you want to just turn the game off? I mean, it's so redundant.
It's tiring and it's annoying. But do you know what the worst part is? This is just one of the levels. Do you know how many levels there are in this game? 14. 14 levels. Does this mean I've got to go through all this 14 times? No, thankfully, because there's a password system. But even that is more annoying than it should be. But, you know, we'll get to that later on.
So Tintin rescues Chang, the two of them introduce each other, and... what? It appears that Tintin was telling the captain the story of when he met his friend Chang the whole time.
Level 1 was a flashback? Oh well. This is level 2 now. It's a whole new level, so hopefully it won't be as monotonous as the first.
Sadly, this whole level is another regardless nightmare. Your first obstacle is a waiter. You have to duck to avoid him, or he hurts you. Why? Why isn't he just a background character that's completely harmless? Speaking of health, you only have 4 hits for each level, representing a parchment in the top left-hand corner. And if that runs out, you die. And to make matters worse, when you beat a stage, your health doesn't replenish. That isn't fair. Anyway, other obstacles in this stage include suitcases, which you have to duck to avoid. You have to use the foreground thing again to avoid maids with vacuum cleaners. And then there is this dog, which you have to dodge as well. It's just the same thing over and over again. Dodging, dodging, and more dodging. Anyhow, at the end of this stage, Tintin finds out that Chang is coming for a visit. But his plane has crashed in the mountains of Tibet, and there were no survivors.
Tintin's friend Chang is dead?